Subscribe our channel 13 and press that bell icon to get an instant update of our latest content. Today I'm reading a page from my own journal that I had written some time ago, and then we will be discussing on the subject. At a public speaking in Ohio in USA in 1930, J. Krishnamurti, while speaking about the meaning of truth, said, "Truth is a pathless land." As I watched an old recording of this on YouTube this morning, a thought arose about the simpleness and the profundity in this statement, and yet it felt to seek the same truth, we walk a landless path, a journey that many take for a lifetime, fighting for my truth versus your truth, debating and deliberating on what truth is, and never to reach anywhere. And therefore, JK's short phrase, "Truth is a pathless land," touched me so deeply. If truth were to be defined, it is only in the right now, in this moment. Not that, but this one. No, not that. It's this. This, not that. Just this. Not even a fraction of a second ago, nor that little fraction of time in future. Trying to know truth through such a description, though, is as futile as trying to learn riding a bicycle by reading a book about how to ride a bicycle. Like riding a bicycle is an experience of balance, so is the realization of truth. It's an experience of the right now. When there is nowhere to be reached but here, truth becomes a pathless land. So I had written this prasana in the context of whatever inspired me that morning, but there's something deeper I felt to look at.
Mm-hmm.
Because truth is in the right now, and we find right now exists mostly in the mundanity of this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore we find being in the right now boring. Perhaps that's why we always are looking at something from the past or something from the future that excited or excites us.
Hmm.
And then we are always trying to reach there. And sometimes you also reach there that imagined becomes your right now, and then you are not in acknowledgement of that and you are looking for something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even a natural progression that you are constantly and consciously trying to improve or elevate yourself, but it's a struggle to run away from this moment, from the mundanity of this moment. While it is simple to understand what truth is, it is not really easy to experience and live in the right now.
Right. So, if we look at the particular reading which you did from JK and overall other readings also on this topic of truth, when we look at J. Krishnamurti's way of looking at it, I think it is very straightforward in a way. It's kind of looking at a particular thing and then being in that experience of it rather than the description of it. Many a times we try to describe truth, we try to uh, make a story around it, and then there comes, as you said, different paths, different religions, different roads to achieve that truth, and people then get attached to their own particular path, and then it becomes like, as you said, my truth versus your truth, my path versus your path, and lot of things start. And many a times we are not even aware of this because a lot of story about what reality is and what truth is has been told to us or is given to us right from our birth. So the place I am born, the house in which I am born, the in an Indian context, if you see the caste, the religion, the all the sects which are there, so inside of that, when a child is born, from that very moment or rather before that, quite a few things which are considered to be truth are given to that child. And when a person grows in that mindset, it is very difficult first to acknowledge that it's a given mindset by someone, and then to look at that mindset, and then to acknowledge that I am here. In the lack of better word, I'm using the word trapped in that mindset, and then to maybe break through it and then see what is real for one. And like real when for one is to experience it in right now, as you said, that this very moment when I'm talking with you, it's a just normal conversation which we do these days on a very regular basis, but then to be present there and to experience that is what truth is, rather than uh, putting different paths around it or roads around it, and maybe certain rituals around it also.
Absolutely. In the latter part that you said about while having this conversation, being fully present to the conversation is something which is very important. At the same time, you also referred to the idea, which I have also read from my writing, which is about the notion of my truth versus your truth. And we then constantly keep deliberating and even sometimes fighting about who is right here. That comes from our conditioned mind. But the thing is, if we observe these two patterns of being present to this moment and of your truth versus my truth, we always are, like you said, trapped into the idea of what truth is. And our constructed reality here is that we are seeking truth from the outside, from the external factors, be it religion, be it gender, be it social status, or for that matter, even economic status. And in this context, we think of ourselves being in a certain position, privileged or unprivileged, and we start believing as if that's the truth. Whereas the truth of the matter is, all we have is just this moment. Whatever was our past or whatever our future will be so. And we always assume of our current position, like, say, I'm the prime minister of this land, or I'm the CEO of this company, or you're just a cog in the wheel, and that nobody really cares if I'm there or not. And we assume that to be the truth. You're playing a certain role right now, and that could be a reality, but not necessarily the truth. And in the part that you touched upon of being present to the conversation itself, there's a certain degree of contemplativeness to it, a certain degree of reflection into looking at ourselves to be fully present into the right now. So, a question that comes to my mind is that is the truth within us and not outside, and that we are conditioned to base it on the external world?
Correct. So I think the problem with this topic in a way is in the, as I said, the description of it. The moment I try to define it, the moment I try to put it in words, the more and more I will keep diluting it. And the experience, and that's the problem, because when we look at any particular path followed by any, maybe a saint, a guru, or a person who has been finding truth in a very genuine, honest way. I'm not saying about in a unethical way, but in a right way they have been attempting it. The problem with their learnings is when they share those learnings, they have to be shared in a scripture or in a text or in a explanation, and that explanation dilutes the whole experience. Then we move into the second direction of trying to get the same experience, which is another trap, I would say, because what happens is when we try to get a particular experience, we are not in present. We are either into the past of that person's experience, whether it is of Gautam Buddha or Mahavira or someone else from the past, or in the future, like how I will be getting into that experience. So again, I'm not acknowledging the present right now moment. And the fun part is that when we talk about experience, we always try to fantasize it as something which is unnatural, something which is different from what others are experiencing, something which is very different from a person who is maybe working on the street, or which is very different from a person who is standing in a bus. But as we started this conversation, rather than looking for a supernatural or a different kind of a high level, or whatever level we want to discuss kind of experience, if we look at it as is in the day to day activities, in the things which we do in our daily life, I think that's where we come more closer to truth, if not completely being there, but at least very close to what truth and what reality is.
True. And it's like we are trying to write a book here about how to ride a bicycle
Correct.
because we are trying to describe what truth is,
Yes.
whereas it's really an experience.
True. So balance, as you said, cannot be explained in words. The more and more I try to explain you what balance is, the more and more I will struggle for myself, and I will put you into more doubts.
And there are many ways to experience truth, I feel. One of them is when I'm meditating, there's a point when I completely slow down, there's a point when I'm completely at ease. I'm there in that moment and I'm experiencing the moment as is. There's no story, no conversation about anything. The constant inner dialogue that is playing is stopped, maybe just for a few seconds. Another one is when I'm writing into my journal, there's an experience where, uh, for a moment, when you feel from inside an experience of being in the right now.
Correct.
And there are many such instances. So even sometimes when we are engrossed into our work, we are completely involved and we lose track of time, and we don't even realize that half a day is already gone and that it's already lunchtime.
Hmm.
It happens a lot when there is a higher degree of involvement, a higher degree of immersion into the work that we are into, when no other thoughts are lingering in our head, and it happens to all. Now, how do we get there consciously needs to be looked at.
Right. So I agree with you, and meditation might not be the only way, I would say, but definitely is one of the way, and one can do that way. The other thing which is more important here is whether it is in the form of writing or a particular activity or my meditation. In all the cases, what we are doing is we are slowing down. So bringing that slowness in life, it does two things. One, it breaks you from the autopilot mode which we anyways otherwise are, because most of the time we don't even acknowledge and realize that we are in that autopilot mode, and that's what we have been talking in some of our past podcasts also, where we talk about that we suddenly realize that 10 years have passed and we wake up into a new world, and these things keep happening. So first thing, by slowness we bring it to our present situation or present day, present moment. And the second thing which happens by that, as you said, is that it helps you to be in touch with the current reality, the space around you. You, rather than wandering around in different places, you are now here within yourself, within your body. I think these two things definitely bring us closer to truth. Again, I don't want to get into the right answer of finding truth, because we honestly don't know. We ourselves are kind of seekers in that, struggling and seeker. So with that complete acknowledgement, I would say that it's an attempt to come closer without using any particular path and without using any particular method, but trying to come as closer as we can and experience that.
Absolutely. But when you mention this, interestingly, what comes to my mind is that truth demands 100% participation. It's a participatory game. You cannot be an audience and look at truth from a distance. You have to be into it. And only when you're present to it, your presence is there, your participation is there, your involvement is there, only then you're with the truth. The moment you think that I'm with that truth, you're perhaps not, because now you're thinking about being with the truth.
Correct.
That degree of participation, we are doing it sometimes unconsciously at many levels, but to bring that presence consciously is the key.
Yeah.
Now, what then becomes available or is achieved by bringing that presence also needs to be looked at.
Right. So I think the possibility which I can see here is, firstly, is to accept that in the domain of thoughts, it is not available for me to find truth, simply because those thoughts are, again, as we said, they are either coming from my past or they are coming from future. So thoughts is a typical path or medium which we use for everything, for our planning, for our execution, for our decision, for our design. So thoughts is something which is not going to help me, is an acknowledgement coming here, that because those thoughts are either coming from my past experiences or past realities, or from my future expectation, worries, anxieties. So that is a very clear cut. The moment I realize that, I can see that the possibility is to acknowledge the whole process of thought itself, to look at thoughts from a distance. And when I'm looking things from a distance, that how things are getting generated or what is at the source of it, I think I am coming again. closer to the truth. So I don't want to touch upon the final way how we can get it, but then everyone might have their own way of experiencing it.
Hmm, I agree. You talked about thoughts, and thoughts are important because they tell us about the past, they tell us about the future, and that is necessary for our survival.
Correct.
Now we can keep on improvising our quality of survival too. But to live, we have to be in the right now where there is the absence of those thoughts. The very essence of living in the right now is to have just this. What we are doing right now is living, and the moment we start thinking about the past or the future would be for our survival.
Correct.
That where will I get my next meal from? Or for that matter, will people even listen to this podcast? In survival, one learns that if I do that, then this happens. I'm recollecting a memory here. As a child, when for the first time I touched a live wire, I had an experience of an electric shock. And then each time to touch a wire, even if it is a coated wire, I would think twice. I was basically scared. This these kind of instances basically allow us to survive.
True. I agree with you. So, when it comes to our operational activities, things like fear help us, in fact, because they protect us and they help us in surviving. Otherwise, we will do mistakes which we should not do. So, on an operational level, yes. But when we are talking at an experiential level, at a being level, I think that's where a state of thoughtlessness definitely brings us closer to the truth or the reality.
Hmm. And when we are, like we've said, unconsciously, we are sometimes present to this moment. We bring involvement, a total immersion into this moment that we lose track of time, and therefore, unconsciously, we are present to the truth. And with that, we get a sense of satisfaction, a sense of joy on experiencing such moments. We all have experienced such moments. Now, if we are only to do this consciously, we have to learn to be fully present to the right now and be in the moment. Mm, to describe more than this will become a futile exercise as we can't really give that experience. But before we complete the podcast for the day, what I would like to do is create a participatory engagement where we simply pause ourselves from whatever we are doing now and bring a silence for the next 5 seconds and then we complete. Shall we?
Sure.
Okay, so just a few basic instructions for this exercise. Keep aside whatever you're doing right now to just experience this moment as is. If thoughts emerge, then they are there in the moment. Just let them pass by. Just be with this moment for the next 5 seconds. And so we can start now. So I had said 5 seconds, and many of us were probably able to experience the moment as is. But what may have also happened is after 5 seconds, a thought may have lingered. Is this it? Or has the audio paused or stopped buffering? Or have they forgotten to keep a track of 5 seconds? Basically, all sorts of conversations happened for the next additional seconds that we piled on. The point of this exercise, which I was trying to make here, is that how fragile our mind is, that for a fraction of a second we are there, we think that this is such an easy exercise, and then we are gone somewhere.
Absolutely.
So, all we can do is just become present to this internal conversation, and only with practice and more practice, we can learn to be with the right now.
Yeah, I think practice is the right word there. I think the more and more one does, the person can build more. You can say reinforcement of this practice, and rather than then using it as a technique, one can see the real value of it. So Because the moment I use it as a technique, I will be just ticking it mark that yes, I have done it for 5 seconds, or maybe as people do 2 hours of meditation, it is something like that. But if we are not with our own being, with our own thoughts, with our own self, I think uh, the amount or the quantum of time which we spend on the activity is irrelevant. So I think, you are right, as you rightly said, practice definitely helps in clarifying these things. But I completely agree on the other aspect also, which you did right now, of 5 seconds of being silent. I think these things can definitely be a good start for slowing down, and it can be done anywhere. So here we did during our podcast, but it can be done before a meeting, or a student can do it just before the examination starts, or a teacher can do just before a class starts. So somewhere where you can really stop that autopilot mode, come into your own self, and then start from there.
Absolutely. And as we converse right now, we refer to practice. And what therefore comes to my mind is that this journey of practice is an endless one. One can keep practicing and keep getting better each day. And even Buddha, for that matter, may have never let go of his practice, as there still was scope for improvement to experience the right now as is. Well, I'm not sure what Buddha may have experienced, whether being in this moment perpetually was available for him or not remains his experience. But what I'm trying to get at is, for a pathless land, one needs to take this endless journey and keep on practicing being in the right now. Thank you for listening. For more such podcasts and daily blogs, subscribe us on creating13.com. That is creating13.com. For 6 days a week, we write blogs on such topics with an intent to promote everyday writing. These blogs are inspired by our own writings, a morning ritual that we religiously follow. We hope that these texts will provide some fodder for thought for an inner enquiry. We believe that writing each day allows one to observe life as is, and it brings a genuine clarity from within. You can follow us on our Twitter or Instagram handle, creating_13, or on our Facebook page, creating13. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we wish to have you with us again next week for listening a new episode on a new topic. Until then, take care.